Hello, everybody. Welcome to this brand new chapter of the book Beyond the Story, a 10-year record of BTS or Bangtan Sonyeondan. We are finally starting the final chapter, chapter 7, entitled We Are. And I don't know how many readings there are going to be for this chapter. So let's just say maybe around 5 or 6, because that's the average of the other chapters. And then we're done. So I hope that you found the readings informative, a little maybe entertaining. Um, but I know that, it's not an easy thing to sit through more than half an hour um, narrations of a book. But I hope that you found some little nuggets of information about BTS that you probably just learned for the very first time or reinforced what you already know about BTS. So join me on another reading of Chapter 7, We Are. Okay. Let me just set this up. Hope you're all having a wonderful time. Okay, let me see. Okay, that should be fine. Thank you to Do Piano for the marvelous background music. The instrumentals of BTS and then in piano. Okay. Subheading Chopped Off. On November 30th, 2021, V, from a hotel in Los Angeles, begins this interview in a state of excitement. The performance is so much fun. This was in answer to the question of how the show was going. 2 years since the 2019 BTS World Tour Love Yourself, Speak Yourself, BTS on November 27 and 28 and December 1st and 2nd held BTS Permission to Dance on Stage, LA, a live show. A footnote. This concert was first delivered in an online format on October 24, 2021 in Seoul's Jamsil Olympic Stadium, while it had been originally designed to be an in-person live performance. Korea's pandemic situation at the time made it necessary to stage it online instead. And I have to say, that was my very first and my family for our very first BTS concert. It was this online Permission to Dance concert, and we've never missed an online iteration of the Permission to Dance series. So when they streamed online also the LA one, we watched that. When they had the online version of the Las Vegas one, we watched that. I think they did another one in Seoul, and the online performance, we watched that too. So I'm proud to say my family and I were regulars of the Permission to Dance online series. Okay. Let's see, where was I? Okay, V, who normally speaks in couples during interviews, sounds fired up on this day. It was like 2 years of being frozen in place and then shattering into motion again, like coming back to what was normality to I'm so happy that we get to feel this again. From the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2021, a period in which BTS could not meet up with their audience, their popularity and position in the industry only grew. Their digital single, Dynamite, released on August 21st, 2020, topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks, including 2 consecutive weeks, and Butter, released on May 21st, 2021, topped the same chart for 10 weeks total, and 7 weeks consecutively. And the album B, released between Dynamite and Butter on November 20th, 2020, became the year's second highest selling album on the Gaon chart with 2,692,022 copies sold in just a single month. Now, I think a lot of people, even Army, are not aware of the B album, and that is an incredibly, well produced, and it had all the members contributing in the writing, composing, and even the project management of it. I think the lead project manager of that is, I think, Jimin. Yeah. So they all had a hand in that album. So also it will help to watch the making of it. There is a video, the behind the scenes cover of that, where they interview each other. And I think that's on the official YouTube channel of BTS, the Bangtan TV. So that will be a very interesting video or documentary to watch. They put in a lot of work, and remember, this was during the height of the pandemic. So it's amazing that they came up with the concept, and wrote the songs, and really, came up with a wonderful album. So that was B. The highest selling album was, of course, Map of the Soul 7, which was released on February 21st, 2020, and sold 4,376,975 copies. Aside from opening, I think the screams were the loudest when we transitioned from Dynamite to Butter. Yes, that dance break. What RM says of the BTS Permission to Dance on Stage LA event shows BTS's heightened positioning in the world of popular music since the release of Dynamite and Butter. Not only did the worldwide success of these 2 songs cement BTS as the artists with the most passionate fandom in the world, they also made them the most famous superstars in terms of mainstream reach. This performance features surprise guests appearances from Megan Thee Stallion and Coldplay's Chris Martin. Now, footnote for those 2 stars: Megan Thee Stallion joined BTS on stage for Butter during the second performance, which was on November 28, while Chris Martin performed My Universe with BTS during the 4th performance, December 2nd. So this performance features surprise guest appearances from Megan Thee Stallion and Coldplay's Chris Martin, garnering 210,000 or 100,000 audience members over the 4 days. Jin says of performing before a live audience again, "I was thrilled. Maybe it's because I tend not to think of the past too much or dwell on sad memories, but this performance made me feel we were back to 2 years ago, like we'd never left the stage. But meeting the fans was such a thrill. The members kept talking about that right before the first performance. We were worried we'd start crying in the middle of doing our opening number on. I was really curious and wondering, will these guys really burst into tears? But thankfully, no one cried. Jin laughs. Jin did not cry either, under a belief that an artist must have a certain attitude on stage. He continues, I tried not to get too sentimental while I was on stage. I was so glad to see the fans, but I needed to concentrate on performing first and foremost. And then the members started talking to the audience, and I got very sentimental. Ah, this is so wild, like a movie. Yes, this is what I've missed. But if I keep wallowing in that, I would never be able to perform properly. So I try as hard as possible to forget such feelings while I'm on stage. But until the moment they returned on stage, the members had harbored the darkness of doubt with them at all times. Having begun in 2020 when they were prevented from meeting their fans, this doubt could not be dispelled just by looking at their phones to see their astounding chart performance. And beyond the pandemic, Jimin had always put store in encountering the audience through a live performance. Chart performance was something I couldn't fathom at all until we were with a live audience. And more than how well we did on the charts, I just I just wanted to meet the fans in person the most. All I could think of when we finally got to perform was, I'm so glad we're seeing each other in person. Jimin also has this to say about the effect of the pandemic on his life. Well, I don't think I have a lot of memories of the pandemic. Like that time was chopped off, quote unquote, my memory. I just felt like time was passing. It was hard at times, and we overcame it. But looking back at that time, I feel so wistful. Of course, we did well on the charts during that time, but we were not in it for the chart performance to begin with. We were perfectly satisfied and grateful for the love and support we'd received even before then. Let's think about that before I proceed, yeah? I know we get caught up in charts and streaming and all that, but take a moment. BTS really is not focused on the charts. And I think we have to also reflect on that. I'm not saying not to stream or, it wouldn't feel good to see BTS's music top the charts. But I think the priority should be we appreciate first and listen to the music. Have a time to just enjoy the fruits of their labor and not to get obsessed with charts. Because good things happen then as well. I try to think it wasn't a meaningless time, but I really feel like it's a chopped off part of my life. And just looking at the Dynamite digital single, which was released on August 21st, 2020, the tracks are, of course, all Dynamite, but different versions. So Dynamite, then Dynamite Instrumental, and Dynamite Acoustic Remix, and Dynamite EDM Remix. Subheading 200417 RM. You want us to switch on the YouTube live feed and not think about anything else? You really think we can do that? RM laughs. Those are RM's words after his first ever live stream held through the BTS YouTube channel on April 17, 2020. Still under the mood of the previous day's broadcast, RM notes how BTS have now entered territory that's unfamiliar to them as well. When we warned Bang Shi-yuk that we could end up saying all kinds of stuff in the broadcast, he said, "Sure, go ahead." The first episode was my turn, so I thought, whatever. Let's just put something on the record. And I talked about preparing our album, and I got such a kick out of it. In this broadcast, RM promised two things to the people watching him in real time. One was that for the time being, the members of BTS would take turns at least once a week sharing their daily lives on YouTube. The second thing was the eventual release of their new album titled B. That's BE. This was unprecedented for BTS. The band was known for expanding on a theme in great detail for every album, organically connecting all content, including videos and photos, and their methods of sharing the message of their albums were concurrently ever expanding in terms of variety and scale. Map of the Soul 7 was at the pinnacle of such efforts. In this one album, BTS continued to look inward while connecting their work to outside projects like the global contemporary art exhibit Connect BTS. And now the same team was jumping into live streaming on YouTube without any set theme or plan, just 2 months into the release of Map of the Soul 7 and making a surprise announcement about a new album. They were practically being extemporaneous. But it wasn't as if anyone could foresee what the world would be like after the pandemic. Promotional activities for Map of the Soul 7 had ground to a halt. The April premiere of the BTS Map of the Soul tour in Seoul had been wiped off the schedule, and their international tour had been put on ice as well. They were grappling with the same issue that artists around the world were struggling with, which was dealing with an uncertain future. J-Hope had this to say during the height of the pandemic: "I wanted to spend each year after that being grateful for my life and feeling blessed. But wow, I don't know why this year is so horrifying." There was nothing to be done. Time seemed like it had stopped, but not the suffering. And there was no way of being sure about any plan for the future or what message to send to the world. All they could do was turn on their cameras and wait for their fans, wherever they were, to arrive, just as it had been during their debut. Subheading: A record of mornings, as in daytime, morning. The YouTube real-time streaming was a new experience for both BTS and ARMY. Suga would turn on his camera and paint a picture, mostly in silence, and J-Hope would show an entire practice session from beginning to end, including warm-up and honing his dance moves. These broadcasts, hashtagged Stay Connected and Carry On, allowed BTS to share their daily lives with their fans and show them what they were doing since the onset of the pandemic and what mindset they were trying to cultivate. The routine J-Hope undergoes before he dances was the product of someone who has taken a lot of time and effort to get to know himself, and sharing it was like telling others, without words, who he was inside. Suga's painting was the same. He explains, what should I be doing during a pandemic? Was the only thing I could think the whole time. A tour has set a set schedule you just have to follow, but all that had shattered. I thought, if I were never able to set foot on stage again, then who am I? So my answer to that was to just do whatever came to mind. Painting kind of makes you forget your worries. It was a device that allowed me to detach myself from whatever negative thoughts popped into my head. The title, Suga put on the work at the time, also symbolized what he had wanted to express and share with the fans. It's titled Morning, but it was also titled Worry. When I look back on my anxious moments, they tend to be at their worst around 5 a.m. in the morning, which is why my least favorite color is that bluish shade right before the sun begins to rise. But when I drew, I did not have a plan in mind. I just wanted to do what came to mind, and I had no idea I would end up with such a dark blue color. To express the emotion one feels living their lives to the point where not even the artist realizes what ends up appearing on the canvas, Suga's painting and his method of revealing his process is similar to how B, the album, was produced. During the pandemic, BTS prepared their album while making their discussions on the direction and methods of production public. The members' feelings as they lived through the pandemic were turned into songs, and the very best of these songs were chosen. And the members divided among themselves through meetings the various roles necessary to create an album. Just as they had in their jungle building days in the past, they put together their album as if engaging in a cottage industry production. The only thing that had changed was the reason they were making an album. What they had wanted as they had gathered in that tiny studio and practice room in Changgu Building was the validation of certified success. They believed that once they succeeded, the world would show them who they are. But even when they had achieved such success, BTS had decided to do something else with their music. J-Hope says, I'm sitting in the studio staring into space and thinking, what song should I write now? I'd go back and forth between home and the studio, wondering, what kind of life have I lived until now? And what were my thoughts as I lived that life? And occasionally watched performances we had done for television, then I would think, that's right, that's who I was, or what was it like back then? And a kind of determination arose from that process that I should try to capture, like a diary, the songs and emotions that I can express only in this time of my life. Whether the results are good or bad or mediocre, let's just do it. Let's try getting closer to the listener by showing and sharing the small parts of myself that have been in the shadows until now. And for the B album, which was released on November 20th, 2020, the tracks are Life Goes On, Fly to My Room, Blue and Gray, Skit, Telepathy, Disease, Stay, and Dynamite. So that's 8 tracks all in all. And we shall stop there before we tackle each of the tracks of the B album. Thank you so much for spending time with me. It's so great to start chapter 7. And before long, we will be able to complete the whole book. So until next time, have a wonderful day and evening. This is Beyond 1800 with BTS.